The bar lights flickered above me, humming faintly like they were in on the joke. She sat across from me in a red dress, her wine glass tilted casually in her hand. A smirk played on her lips, the kind she wore when she wanted to cut deep. "Evan," she said, swirling the glass, "you're sweet. But sweet doesn't pay bills. Sweet doesn't buy futures. You're just too poor for me." The words landed sharper than the glass could ever shatter. My throat tightened, but I stayed still. She leaned in, whispering so only I could hear, "You'll always be a nobody. And I can't waste my time on nothing." Then she stood, kissed me on the cheek like I was a child, and walked out laughing. The bartender gave me a sympathetic look, but all I could hear was the echo of her heels clicking against the floor as she left me behind. My name is Evan Carter. I am 32 years old, and the night my girlfriend dumped me for being too poor, I realized silence could be louder than screaming. If you're watching this, drop a comment, hit like and subscribe, because what came next wasn't tears, it was a plan that would make headlines. I didn't chase her. I didn't beg. I finished my drink, left a tip I could barely afford, and walked out into the night air. The city pulsed around me, horns, chatter, neon lights flickering on wet pavement. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to be, someone waiting for them. I had nothing, and for the first time, that truth felt like freedom. The days that followed were numb. I dragged myself to my job at a dusty hardware store, stocking shelves, fixing broken locks, listening to customers complain. My coworkers noticed I was quieter, but I shrugged them off. At night, I stared at the ceiling in my one-room apartment, her laughter replaying in my head. "You're a nobody." But eventually, the ache hardened. I stopped hearing her voice as pain. I started hearing it as fuel. I remembered my father's words when I was 15. He'd lost his job at the factory, and I asked him how we'd survive. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Son, sometimes the world kicks you when you're down. Don't cry about it. Build something they can't ignore." That memory lit a spark in me. I started small, saving every dollar I could, selling off things I didn't need. I took side jobs fixing locks, patching roofs, painting fences. People laughed at my hustle, called it small time. But money trickled in, and I didn't spend a cent on distractions. Not on bars. Not on clothes. Not on chasing girls who measured love in dollar signs. Every bill stacked in my drawer was a brick in the wall I was building. Meanwhile, she flaunted her new boyfriend on social media, a guy with a shiny car and a trust fund smile. Their selfies screamed perfect couple, but the captions screamed something else, desperation. Claire, my younger cousin, sent me screenshots. "She really thinks she leveled up," she said. "Are you okay?" I typed back, "Better than okay. Just wait." She replied with a string of fire emojis. "You're planning something, aren't you?" I didn't answer. But the truth was yes, I was. Months turned into a year. My grind grew heavier. I started a small locksmith service, then expanded into security installations. Word spread. A local paper ran a piece about the hustle guy who fixed locks at night and built a company by day. I cut out the article and pinned it to my wall. My revenge wasn't ready yet, but it was brewing. I remembered being 22, broke and desperate, asking a bank for a loan to start a business. They laughed me out of the office. That humiliation still burned. But now, a decade later, I was coming back with proof that their laughter had been premature. 2 years later, my company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. We'd landed contracts with local businesses, small apartment complexes, even a school district. I went from greasy work shirts to tailored suits. From counting coins for rent to signing paychecks for 10 employees. But I stayed quiet. I didn't post, didn't brag. Because I knew the right time to reveal it all was still ahead. And then, fate handed me the perfect stage. A major city paper reached out. They'd heard about the self-made security entrepreneur who started with nothing and built an empire. They wanted to run a feature. A full story. I agreed, on one condition, my face on the cover. The day the paper hit stands, my phone exploded with messages. Old friends. Distant relatives. Even teachers from high school. Everyone wanted to congratulate me. But the message I waited for most didn't come right away. When it did, it was exactly what I'd expected. Her name lit up my screen. Evan, is this really you? I saw the article. Can we talk? My chest tightened, not from longing, but from satisfaction. She had once called me a nobody. Now, the world had called me a headline. And this was only the beginning of her downfall. The message blinked on my phone like a ghost. Evan, is this really you? I saw the article. Can we talk? For a moment I just stared at it, remembering her last words in that bar. You'll always be a nobody. Now she was reaching back, clawing at the somebody she never believed in. I didn't reply. Not right away. Silence was still my sharpest weapon. Instead, I called Claire. She was the only one I trusted with the full scope of what I was planning. She texted me, I said flatly. Claire burst out laughing. Of course she did. Bet she suddenly forgot you were too poor. She wants to talk. And you're not actually considering it, are you? I smiled faintly. I am. But not for the reasons she thinks. A week later, I agreed to meet her. Not at a quiet bar this time, but at a rooftop lounge. The kind of place I used to walk past because I couldn't afford the menu. Now, I was a member. When she arrived, she looked exactly the same. Still polished, still proud. But her eyes gave her away. Nervous, darting, calculating. Evan, she said, forcing a smile. You look incredible. I can't believe this is you. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my drink. Believe it? She laughed awkwardly. Listen, I know things ended badly between us. I wasn't fair to you. But maybe we could start over. Her voice cracked on, start over. I remembered another night, her packing her bags in my tiny apartment, tossing my sweater onto the floor like it was garbage. I can't waste my life with someone who has nothing, she had sneered. Now she was the one wasting words, begging for a do-over. I set my glass down slowly. You dumped me because I was poor. Now you're crawling back because I'm not. Do you hear how pathetic that sounds? Her face paled, but she tried to recover. I was young, stupid. I didn't know better. I shook my head. No, you knew exactly who you were. And you showed me. But I didn't end it there. Not yet. Revenge isn't just rejection, it's revelation. So I invited her to an upcoming gala my company was sponsoring. A charity fundraiser with media coverage. She thought it was an olive branch. In reality, it was the stage I needed. When I told Claire, she frowned. You're really bringing her into your world just to crush her? Yes, I said. Because she needs to see what she threw away. And so does everyone else. The night of the gala, I wore a tailored black suit, the kind she once mocked rich men for wearing while she clung to their arms. She arrived in a silver gown, shining under the chandeliers. People whispered, recognizing me from the headlines. Cameras flashed. She stayed glued to my side, smiling for photographers as though she belonged there. Look at you, she whispered in awe. Everyone's watching you. You're untouchable now. I gave a tight smile. That's the idea. Later that night, the host invited me to the stage to say a few words. Leah looked thrilled, thinking she was about to bask in my reflected glory. I took the microphone, scanning the crowd. 2 years ago, I began, I was told I was a nobody, that I had nothing, that I wasn't worth the time of day. The room went silent. Leah shifted uncomfortably beside me. But that rejection, I continued, lit a fire. It pushed me to build, to grow, to succeed, not to prove her wrong, but to prove myself right. And tonight, standing here, I can say, success isn't about money. It's about resilience. About refusing to let betrayal define you. Gasps rippled through the room as people's eyes darted toward Leah. Her smile froze, then cracked. I handed the microphone back and walked off the stage. She tried to grab my arm, but I slipped past her. The cameras caught everything. Claire found me later, smirking. You just torched her in front of half the city. Good, I said. Let her feel the burn. I remembered Dad once saying after losing his job, people will measure you by what you don't have. Prove them wrong by showing them what you can build. Tonight, I wasn't just proving it to myself. I was proving it to everyone. The fallout was swift. Social media buzzed with clips of my speech. People praised my mystery ex for inspiring me, but not in the way she wanted. Comment sections tore her apart. Imagine dumping someone for being broke, then crawling back once he's on top. She texted me again the next morning. Why would you humiliate me like that? I loved you once. I typed back one sentence. You loved money, not me. Then I blocked her. But revenge wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person who had ever laughed at me for being poor. Every boss who paid me pennies. Every so-called friend who disappeared when my wallet was empty. Now they all saw me. And I wasn't done yet. Because what was coming next would turn local headlines into national ones. The morning after the gala, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Clips of my speech had gone viral overnight, first across local feeds, then through national outlets that loved a Cinderella story, only with reversed roles. From nobody to newsworthy, the man who turned betrayal into fuel. That was one headline. Another read, dumped for being poor, now he owns the room. Leah's name wasn't in the headlines, but people didn't need it. Anyone who knew us connected the dots immediately. She was suddenly at the center of whispers, tagged in posts, dragged in comment sections. And me? I stayed silent. Silence had been my sharpest weapon all along. But silence alone doesn't build legacy. I wasn't just content with headlines. I wanted permanence. So I made my next move. 2 weeks later, I announced my company's expansion. Not just locks and security anymore, we were entering tech, smart home systems, corporate security networks, partnerships with rising startups. I held a press conference in the same city that once turned its back on me. Standing under bright lights, I said, I was told I had nothing. Tonight, I'm proving I can build everything. Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. My name moved from local paper clippings to trending on Twitter. Leah tried calling again. I never picked up. She sent long paragraphs about regret, about how she was lost back then and blinded by shallow dreams. She ended one message with, "You were the love of my life, and I didn't see it until now." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded her message to Claire, who laughed so hard she nearly choked on her coffee. She thinks she can crawl back just because you're the headline. Pathetic. I smiled faintly. Exactly why she'll never get an answer. But fate wasn't done twisting the knife. One evening, I was invited to a live interview with a popular morning show. It wasn't just about business. It was about resilience, betrayal, and what it means to turn pain into progress. The host leaned forward and asked, "Evan, can you tell us about the moment that sparked this journey?" The studio went quiet. I chose my words carefully. Someone I loved told me I was nothing because I was poor. She laughed when she walked away. That night, I decided I would never let anyone measure my worth in dollars again. The host raised an eyebrow. "And have you spoken to her since?" I gave a calm smile. "No. Some chapters deserve to stay closed." The audience clapped. The clip spread like wildfire online. Within hours, my words were quoted everywhere. Hashtag "some chapters stay closed" trended across platforms. I remembered Dad's tired face after losing his job, the way he said, "Don't fight to change their opinion of you, son. Fight to change your reality." And here I was, reality transformed. The impact on Leah was immediate. Her social media went dark. Friends distanced themselves. The wealthy boyfriend she'd flaunted online vanished from her photos, rumored to have dumped her after the scandal. Without money, without love, without her circle, she faded into silence. Meanwhile, I grew louder, but only through my work. I bought a building downtown, renovated it into my company's headquarters, and launched scholarships for kids from low-income families. The press ate it up, from broke to benefactor. Every photo of me standing with scholarship recipients was another nail in the coffin of Leah's laughter. One night, months later, I was leaving the office when I saw her waiting near the steps. She looked different, tired, thinner, her once perfect makeup replaced by exhaustion. "Evan," she called softly, her voice trembling. I froze. She walked toward me slowly. "Please, just hear me out. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you." I looked at her, the woman who once smirked across a bar table and told me I was nothing. Now she stood in front of me, broken by her own choices. "There's nothing left to hear," I said calmly. Tears streamed down her face. "I lost everything. And seeing what you've become, kills me." I didn't flinch. "But maybe now you'll understand what you threw away." Her shoulders sagged. "Can't we try again? I swear I've changed." I shook my head. "You didn't love me. You loved what I didn't have. Now you just love what I do. That's not love, it's greed wearing a mask." Her sob echoed in the night. I walked past her without another word. I remembered the night she left me in that bar, the way she laughed as if my pain was entertainment. That laughter haunted me for months. But now it was gone, replaced by silence, and her silence was my closure. The years that followed turned my story into more than just revenge. Documentaries reached out. Podcasts told my story. College students wrote essays about resilience, quoting my interview lines. But through it all, I stayed grounded. I visited Mom every Sunday, just like Dad once did. I brought Claire on as CFO of my company, rewarding her loyalty. I made sure our family name stood taller than the betrayal that once tried to crush me. One evening, sitting with Mom on her porch, she asked, "Do you feel satisfied now?" I thought about it. About Leah, about the headlines, about the viral clips. "I don't feel satisfied because she lost," I said slowly. "I feel satisfied because I won." Mom smiled gently. "That's what your father would have wanted." But the story didn't just end with business success. The biggest twist came when Forbes reached out to feature me in their 30 Under 35 Entrepreneurs spotlight. They asked for a tagline. I gave them one: "From nobody to newsworthy, building in silence, winning in headlines." When the magazine dropped, I didn't need to wonder if Leah saw it. I knew she did. Because that same day, an anonymous email landed in my inbox. No subject line. Just one sentence: "I'll never stop regretting the day I left you." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The world had already answered for me. And yet, through everything, I found myself reflecting more on what I'd learned than what I'd lost. Betrayal had been the spark, but resilience was the flame. Leah had taught me the harshest lesson: never let someone else define your value. If she hadn't laughed at me that night, maybe I never would have built what I built. Maybe I never would have proved Dad right. Maybe I never would have discovered how powerful silence can be. So, in a twisted way, I was grateful. Not for her, but for the pain. Because pain can destroy, or it can forge. And I chose to be forged. The final time I heard Leah's name was through gossip. Someone said she'd moved to another city, working odd jobs, trying to piece her life together. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel pity. I felt nothing at all. Her story had ended for me the moment I walked out of that bar. Everything after was just echoes. And my story? Mine was only beginning. I stood on the balcony of my headquarters one night, city lights glittering below. Claire joined me, sipping her drink. "You ever think about her?" she asked. I exhaled. "Not about her. About the lesson." "And what lesson is that?" "That sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't what you do to them, it's what you build for yourself." Claire clinked her glass against mine. "Then you've already won. Have you ever faced betrayal? Share your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe." Life didn't magically transform the moment Leah walked away. It took years of rebuilding. The nights were long, the work was grueling, and the silence was heavy. But silence became my sharpest weapon, my space to plan and to build. Her betrayal had once echoed in my head like a curse: "You'll always be a nobody." Those words could have broken me. Instead, they became my fuel. Every side job, every saved dollar, every contract I signed was a step away from her laughter and a step closer to my legacy. When headlines finally carried my name, I didn't need to gloat. The world did it for me. People who once ignored me now shook my hand. Kids who had nothing saw hope in what I built. My company wasn't just revenge, it became proof that resilience can outlast betrayal. And Leah? She faded into silence of her own making. No circle of friends, no flashy boyfriend, no spotlight. Just whispers of regret trailing behind her. The same silence I once carried became her punishment. Do I hate her? Hate means she still has space in my heart. And she doesn't. What I carry now isn't anger, it's perspective. She taught me the harshest truth. Some people only see your worth when it shines. And some only stay when your pockets are full. But I also carry gratitude, not for her, but for the pain. Because pain can crush, or it can forge. And I chose to be forged. So in the end, my revenge wasn't just making headlines. My revenge was living free of her, standing taller than her words, and proving to myself that value isn't measured in money, it's measured in resilience. Revenge wasn't loud, it was legend.